You might think that a softbox is the only way to get soft, pleasing light for your videos, but there might be a better option. In this video, we're going to look at a couple different options for getting soft light for your videos, and one of them might not be what you're expecting. So first, we really need to look at what soft light is and why we want it. In most situations, soft light is more flattering on the face, hides some imperfections, and just overall gives a more pleasing look to your videos. Now, hard light can actually be desirable in some situations because it can convey a certain emotion or it can highlight certain features within your scene. Now, choosing between hard light or soft light really comes down to the emotion that you're trying to create, the way you want your scene to look, but also can be motivated by the lighting that's already existing in your scene. Maybe there's a light source, a ceiling light, or a lamp in the corner. Maybe it's a window, and the way that light is hitting your subject or your frame can determine what type of lighting that you want to use with your video lights. One thing to note is that soft light is often thought to be more even and has less contrast, doesn't have as many shadows, but really soft light has just a smoother roll off to the shadows. You can have just as much contrast with soft light as you do with hard light. It really just depends on how you light your subject and what type of lighting modifier you may use. Now let's go ahead and take a look at a few different options on what a softbox setup could look like. There's tons of different options on the marketplace, and if you'd like me to make a video on some of the different options and how to use them and what kind of light they can produce, let me know down in the comments below. In this video, we're using a Godox square softbox. It's 32 inches by 32 inches, has 2 layers of diffusion, and has a grid attached to the front. Throughout this video so far, this is the lighting that I've been using. I haven't been using any fill on this side of my face. I have some practicals behind me as well as a hair light above me, but the only thing lighting the front of me is that softbox, and it's being powered by a Godox ML60Bi, the first generation. And that's only running at about 25% right now. And you can see the shadow roll off on the side of my face. It's wrapping around a bit, but we still have some shadow on this side of my face, and it's creating a nice pleasing roll off of those shadows on the side of my face. Just like there's several different softbox setups, there's a lot of different ways to set up a bounce light too. So in this setup, I'm using a 32-inch reflector with the Godox ML60Bi pointing at it from a low angle and reflecting that light back on my face. Now this is a relatively small bounce modifier, and you can see that there are a couple of areas where the shadows aren't as soft as they could be. If you use a larger modifier with a more powerful light, you can actually get much, much softer shadows. But we can see in this example that I have a lot more spill going all over the room versus just coming onto my face, whereas when I had the softbox, it was much more directed. So if I want to have similar light to the way that light comes in through a window and fills the space up, a bounce can be a great option for that. Now let's go ahead and talk through some of the pros and cons of a softbox versus using bounce lighting. So the first pro that we really need to talk about with the softbox is the fact that it tends to be more directional. You can actually aim where that light is going. You can use an egg crate grid on the front to direct that light exactly where you want it to go, and you can point that relatively easily. You can point the softbox exactly to where you want that light to go. A second advantage to a softbox is it can be a little bit faster to set it up, especially if you have a pop-up style softbox. You can just pop it open, put it on your light, aim it where you need to go, and you're off to the races. Another advantage to a softbox setup is, in general, you're going to need a less powerful light to power that softbox because the light source is much closer to your subject than it is with a bounce. Now, some cons of a softbox are kind of a flip side of one of the advantages is that a softbox produces a smaller area of light. And so if you need to light a large area like a room, or if you have several people that you're trying to light with just a single softbox, that can be difficult to do. You tend to need to move that softbox further back, and the further back you move it, you start to lose some of that softness, and you certainly lose quite a bit of the intensity. Another disadvantage of a softbox setup is that they can be quite bulky, especially the pop-up style softboxes. Because they're not fully breaking down, they can be quite large to travel with, and it's just more gear to have to bring with you on location. And right along with that disadvantage comes the actual setup size. If you're using a large parabolic style softbox, something like a 47-inch softbox, those can be quite deep. And when you attach that to the light and you have the light stand and the sandbags, it can be quite cumbersome to try to move that around. And so if you're working in a small space, that may be simply just too large for you to use in the space that you have. And really the last con to look at is some softboxes can be quite expensive. They can be upwards of $200, $300 for some of the higher end models. Now, it can be a sound investment that will last you for years and years to come, but if you're just beginning, it can be quite cost prohibitive to actually get a nice large softbox to get soft light. So now let's look at some of the pros of a bounce light versus a softbox. In general, a bounce light is going to produce a larger light source, which is going to be good if you need to light a large area. Maybe you're trying to light an entire room or space of a room. You have multiple people that you want to light. Sometimes bounce can be a better option than a softbox. Another advantage of bounce lighting is that it produces very, very soft light because that light is being dispersed much more than it is with a softbox. Because a softbox is generally directional in sending that light in one direction, it's still soft, but it may not be quite as soft as bounce light can produce for you. The last pro for bounce lighting is that it can be less expensive. You can utilize something like a shower curtain or a blanket or a sheet that's white. A simple piece of poster board or foam core can be a very inexpensive option to act as your bounce for your lighting. Now, the first con to really look at for bounce lighting is that it can be more tricky to set up. You have to control the angle of your bounce, the angle of your light source. Following up into the second con is that there can be quite a bit of spill because that light is dispersing all over the room. These two kind of go hand in hand. You have to set up flags or negative fill and things like that to really control the light and shape it the way that you want it to work for your scene. The last con to really look at for bounce lighting is that in general, it's going to require a more powerful light because that light is being dispersed over a larger area. And so if you only have something like a 60-watt light, then it can be a little bit difficult to use bounce light unless you're just lighting a small area or a single subject. So I hope you got some value out of this video, and go ahead and hit those like and subscribe buttons. Let me know down in the comments if there's any other video topics you'd like me to cover, and I'll see you in the next one.